So right here we have Rogets International Thesaurus, 3rd edition. And of course we have this book, What They Never Told You in History Class, Volume 1. Okay. I like to get the hard copies. Number 7, Negro, colored person, black, blackamoor, Jim Crow, slang U.S., darky, Sambo, ebony, all colloquial terms. Right here, the image of God, cut in ebony, fuller, African, Ethiopian, Ethiop, or Ethiop, swarthy, Ethiop. Swarthy means dark or black. Shakespeare, colored man, man of color, buck, Negro, both colloquial, chiefly U.S., and so forth. But more emphasis, why are they stating that the Negro is in the image of God?
God is a Negro. I am in big trouble.
So right here it states how to use this book. In a dictionary, you start with a word and look for its meaning. In Rogets International Thesaurus, you start with your idea and find the words to express it. Number 1, look up your idea in the index and find beneath it the closest synonym. Number 2, turn to the numbered section you choose and find dozens of synonyms and associated words. Okay. You look up the verb shade in the index and select the closest synonym or guide word beneath it. Okay. So they're letting us know what the Negro is. He's made in the image of God, right? So right here we have the guy, Peter Mark Roget, a Caucasian man. These are white sources or Caucasian sources, and they're saying it's not me. Okay, 1779 through 1869. So right here we're at 417 peoples, and we got to understand that the Caucasians, they like to dissect history. And we know that the Bible goes upon seed lines. Okay. And this is how they classify the different quote unquote races. The Caucasians. And of course, they like to tie themselves to the Scandinavian, Norsemen, Vikings, Hindu, Indian, Semite, Semitic, Jew, Jewish, Hebrew, Israelite. This is what they do, right? But when we look at, archaeology, pictures, and so forth, they tell a different story. But they have to group themselves into history because they were never in history as far as the civilized societies and whatnot. I mean, I'm not making this shit up. It is what it is. And what I said earlier, look at this. Look how they classify the quote-unquote brown race. Fiji. Okay. I show videos where they have afros, kinky hair. The same, physiology or whatnot. But you see how they like to separate and group different races or sea lines according to their version of history. Okay. Right there we have Gullah. Like Gullah Gullah Island, or Geechee. Bantu, Malaysian, okay, even up here, the Celts, Hamitic, Hebrew, those were all Negroes or Negroid peoples as well. Okay. Aborigines, Dravidian, Indian, and so forth. So now we're going to look at this book. What is the color of your God, supreme being, in your subconscious mind? Of course, here in the Americas, they've brainwashed the Negro to believe this wild man, or Caucasian, or Edomite, is in the image or the supreme being. which he is not. What's wrong with this picture? Lots of things. Is God a white man?
Being said, you told her that God is black.
I simply posed it as a possibility.
We don't speculate on God's color, Walter. If you ever want Vivian to speak to you again, go upstairs and tell her that God is white.
But we're really not sure. I mean, the Hindus don't believe it, the Muslims, the Buddhists.
God is white. It's simple logic. His son is white.
That's not proof. I'm white, my son is black.
Well, that is obvious, but we don't know if it's obvious that God is white. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that Jesus did not have blonde hair and blue eyes. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that the images of Jesus that are on prison walls and churches throughout the world are not historically correct, because history teaches us that Jesus was born in a region where the people had color. There's proof in the very Bible that you ask us to read in Revelations, 1st chapter, verse 14 and 15, that Jesus had hair like wool and feet the color of brass.
Just what are you saying?
I'm not saying anything. I'm proving to you that Jesus was not, and I might quote one of our Indian brothers, he was not a paleface. Amen.
Isn't that interesting?
Okay. 1863. And you see what's wrong with this. Because when we look back over here, it's stating that the Negro colored person is the image of God cut in ebony, right? That's why when you look at this book, the Anacalypsis, Volume 1, black statues of the gods, blue man. Okay. On the first view, it seems rather an extraordinary circumstance that the statues of the gods of the ancients should be represented of a black color, or that they should have been made of stone as nearly black as it could be obtained. Where the stone could not be obtained quite black, a stone was often used similar to our blue slate, of a very dark blue color, the drapery of the statue often being in a different light colored stone. It is evident that the intention was to represent a black complexion. Okay, of this there can be no doubt. The marble statues of Roman emperors are often found with the fleshly part black and the drapery of a white or some other color. Okay, right here it states, again, he says, now it is not a little remarkable that a dark blue tint approaching to black, as his name signifies, was the complexion of Krishna, who is considered by the Hindus not so much a avatar as the person of the great Vishnu himself in a human form. That is, he was incarnate, or in the flesh, as Jesus was said to be. So we know that this right here is an inaccurate Christ, or who we call Yashar'el in the Hebrew community, was a man of color or a Negro. And we see this is wrong. Okay. Right here in the highlighted points, the word Nile in the Indian language means black. Okay. Whenever the Arabs, the Hebrews, the Greeks, and the Latins have wished to translate the word Nile, they have always made use of a word which in their language signifies black. The Hebrews call it Sikor, the Ethiopians, Nicole, if I'm pronouncing it right, the ancient Latins, Melo, like Carmelo or Lamello ball, the Greeks, Melis, all names signifying black. The word or name Nilios, then in Egyptian, represents the same idea as the word Nilo in Indian. The black images of the Virgin and Child. Of course, I read this plenty of times. Osiris and his bull were black. All the gods and goddesses of Greece were black. At least this was the case with Jupiter, Bacchus, Hercules, Apollo, Ammon, the goddess Venus, Isis, Hecate, Diana, Juno, Metis, Ceres, Cybele are black. The multi-mamma is black in the Cambidillo at Rome, and in the Montificon Antiquity explained. Okay. Right here it states, there is scarcely an old church in Italy where some remains of the worship of the Black Virgin and Black Child are not to be met with. Now, I do believe this is on Real History, www.com, and it states, all knowledgeable so-called blacks must have mused at one time or another, i.e. church leaders, must surely know that the Hebrews were black people, thus Jesus was black. So how can they in good conscience allow them to be depicted as whites? The reasons for that are of course complicated and racist, but here's how the popes deal with it in private. German Pope Benedict XVI and Italian, by way of Argentina, Pope Francis I, prayed to the Black Madonna in a Vatican chapel in 2013. Very often, the black figures have given way to white ones. In these cases, the black ones, as being held sacred, were put into retired places in the churches, but were not destroyed, but are yet to be found there. I wonder why. The mother is, the author believes, always black when the child is. The real blackness is not to be questioned for a moment. If the author had wished to invent a circumstance to corroborate the assertion that the Romanist Christ of Europe is the Krishna of India, how could he have desired anything more striking than the fact of the Black Virgin and Child being so common in the Romanish countries of Europe? A Black Virgin and Child among the white Germans, Swiss, French, and Italians. The Romanist Krishna is black in India, black in Europe, and black he must remain, like the ancient gods of Greece, as we have just seen. I must now request my reader to turn back to the first chapter and to reconsider what I have said respecting the two Ethiopias and the existence of a black nation in a very remote period, so they know. When he has done this, the circumstances of the black god of India being called Krishna and the god of Italy, Christ, being also black, must appear worthy of a deep consideration. Is it possible that this coincidence can have been the effect of accident? In our endeavors to recover the lost signs of former ages, it is necessary that we should avail ourselves of rays of light scattered in places the most remote, and that we should endeavor to recollect them into a focus, so that by this means we may procure as strong a light as possible. And of course, Krishna having the meaning of black. All right. Now we're back at this book. White people worship black god or deities. Negroes were first worshipped in Greece and Rome. The white masses bow down to black deities, obviously. Okay. The worship of black Isis and Horus were popular in Rome and the Roman colonies as far north as Britain. Okay. The white Christians also bow down to them. Negroes, as was said, were deified in the early Greece. Okay. And he got this all from J.A. Rogers, and the books attest to all this information. Sources. Same thing, what we just read, Godfrey Higgins. Okay. All right. They were all black. All the gods and goddesses of Greece were black. Jupiter back is Hercules. You don't believe me? I'll show you some proof. So right here we have this book, The Unknown Catacombs, the Early Christian Heart. Okay. All right. So right here we have Hercules with his club. Okay. It's not a Caucasian or so-called white man. Hercules stealing the golden apples of the Hesperides. Okay. Right here we have Daniel in the lion's den. The fall of Adam and Eve. They're not pale. Okay. Samson. Look like a Negro to me. Samson slaying the lion. All right. Isaac. Same thing. Afro. The sacrifice of Isaac. Right here we have Moses. Moses putting off his shoes. And Job and his wife. Okay. Right here we have Joseph talking with his brothers in Kemet or Egypt. Okay. They look black or Negro to me, right? I don't know where in this modern age they're getting all their information from because it's been whitewashed. Whitewashed. Everything. Okay. Of course, this book I brought out many times. Okay. And they can't refute you on this information because you have the sources in the books. That's why it's crickets. Or that's why it's silent. Silent. Okay. Look like waves to me. Alright. Hebrews in the biblical period. Okay. They're not pale. Okay. Same thing. You see the sisters with the bonnets, the hoop earrings. Okay. Same thing. The afros, the kinky hair. You can't beat around the bush. Okay, you see the froze. You see the spear. Okay. I'm getting close up. Alright. These are not Caucasian people. It makes you wonder all these institutions and schools are set up lying to all their people. But it has to be done this way in the grand scheme of things. Okay? They can't deny this. They can't deny it. Nope. Model of a bakery. Bread was a staple in Kemet or Egypt. There were bakeries in which one man milled the flour, another kneaded, and a third brought the bread to the oven. The entire operation was directed by the man sitting in the rear. Egyptian Museum. Okay. Okay, right here. The first gods in antiquity were black. The ancients viewed the sacred image of divine as black, and the holy race of the gods was, quote-unquote, African. The gods of antiquity from Greece to Mexico were black. Zeus of Greece, Apollo, Osiris, Isis, of course, what we just read. There's other sources as well. Buddha of India. Okay. If you don't believe me, this is what this Caucasian man has said as well. Varieties of color in man. When the equinoctial sun entered Taurus, he found a man in India, like the first Buddha, a Negro. Okay. And like, you know. Alright. So as stated, Buddha of India was a Negro. The book falling apart. Horus of Rome. Okay. Was the goal of Mexico. Krishna. Okay. Buddha. 7th century Thailand. Look at the hair. Okay. Same thing. Straight and wavy. But notice the hair right there. Now we're back at this book. Notice the hang. Notice the same hair texture right there. Okay. Same thing. Alright. Alright. In the Bible, Revelations 1:14, the Ancient of Days God is described as having hair like the pure wool. J.A. Rogers, 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro. Okay. J.A. Rogers states, were woolly-haired Negroes. The peppercorn hair was a sign of divinity. Okay. Right here, Little do people realize that the world famous Apollo Theater in Harlem is actually named after a black god with woolly hair. African features Apollo, the same peppercorn hair on the head of Christ on the coin bottom of plate 22, likewise of the Buddha. A Book of Beginnings, volume 1. Okay, here's a colossal Buddha head. Okay. Thick lips, full nose. The Hebrews were a dark-skinned African people, or Negroid people, I should say. His feet were like brick. His feet were like burnt brass. Revelations 1:15. Hair like wool. My skin is black. Job 30:30. Our skins were black. Lamentations 5:10. They are black. Jeremiah 14:2. Look not upon me, because I am black. Meaning what? Swarthy. Okay. Christ was a man of simple appearance, mature age, dark skin, with little hair. Okay. Portraits of Christ by the early Christians is informally represented as being black. Okay. They know this already. Same thing I read earlier in the other book. Isis and Horus. Okay. The Black Madonnas and whatnot. Right here, the creators of Christianity. Negroes were the first originators of the Christian religion. J. Rogers, Sex and Race, Volume 1. What is now called the Christian religion has existed among the ancients and was not absent from the beginning of the human race until Christ came in the flesh, from which time the true religion, which existed already, began to be called Christian. Okay. Take with this information what you want. All right. So now we're going to look at this book, The African Presence in Early Europe, because obviously they stated that Negroes were the real originators of the Christian religion. Constantine. Okay. This is what they don't talk about. Isis in the European Christendom. Notes, 431 AD, the official declaration of the Virgin Mary as the Mother of God was a result of this synod, the Council of Ephesus, if I'm pronouncing it right. The AD 431 official declaration of the Virgin Mary as the Mother of God was a result of this synod, the Council of Ephesus. Okay, and the Saint Christianity now contained the elements for mass appeal. Okay, the Virgin Mary was elevated to a status equal to the status of Isis. The European Christians, okay, applied to God through the image of the Virgin Mary, who was recognized as a divine intervener. Many early Christians believed in the Immaculate Conception, which is not biblical, based upon the Hebrew scriptures of the Virgin Mary, though it did not become official church doctrine until the 18th century. The concept grew in popularity. See how the whole world is being deceived? So now we're at the Holy Bible, Genesis 1:26. Now it states, then the Most High said, let us make man in our image. Okay. So now we're back at the Rogets International Book, 3rd edition. So who did the Most High sculpt, in his image? The Negro. Okay. We were here first. The image of God, swarthy, etc. The colored person, blackamoor, the blue man. Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. So when I say that they know that the Most High is a man, a blue man, they're telling us They're telling us. Okay? They are telling us. They tell us through the movies, the imagery, and so forth. These people who study these books and anthropology and all the other stuff, I'm probably butchering some of these words, they know this. It's just the common people don't know this. Let us make man in our image according to our likeness. This is why we have this sort of aura, this vibe, okay? They know our history better than we know ourselves. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So the Most High created man in his own image, okay? Number 7, the Negro, the image of God. Now, why would this so-called white man right here put this in this book? Okay. Why? We got to ask these questions because they know. Okay. So the Most High created man in his own image. In the image of God, or the Most High, he created him. Male and female. There's not all these different genders. There's only 2. He created them. Okay? So, they know. And of course, I read this many times. Okay? Negro, meaning African American vernacular, the English language. Moor, blackamoor, a Middle English word for Ethiopian, perhaps also a Negro, generally was